everybody, it's Imogen and welcome back to Colouring Kid. In today's video I'm going to be sharing how I cover the white lines in my colouring book, but also how I then colour over it and kind of get the effect that it's a painting. And this is especially useful for the book that I'm going to be colouring in. So this is the Thomas Kinkade Disney colouring book. This has been around for a while, apologies for the glare, and I always held off from buying it. I think with lots of people, and lots of people will agree with me, it is very intimidating, and at that stage, I think when it came out in 2017, I had only just begun colouring, and I wasn't really in the position where I thought that I could, I'd be happy with the results. So yeah, I held off, and then I really wanted to try it. So I think I got it about a month ago, along with some other books that will be in a haul at some point. But yeah, I am currently colouring a picture. I'm just going to move the supplies and stuff to the side a minute. And I thought that it would be useful to share how I coloured some of it. So I'm by no means finished. This is not going to be finished for my completed pages. And I've learnt a few things along the way, and I thought it would be helpful to share what's gone wrong, what's gone well, things like that. So I started off with the base here of Lumiere, the base of the candlestick, and that worked out well because there are quite a lot of close areas and there's quite a lot of dark area as well. It went over the lines quite well. Up here, as you can see with the candles, it didn't work that well, and it was because I didn't put enough initial layers of the ink down. So I'm just going to be talking to you about what I use to white out lines. So over the past couple of years, as I've been colouring, I've tried quite a few techniques. Gel pen just didn't work for me, like a white gel pen, a Uniball Signo, things like that. Paint can work. I need to try gouache at some point, but the results that people get do seem to be quite good, and then you can go over that with pencil. The thing that I have found has worked the best, and lots of people think this as well, is the Winsor & Newton ink. Now, I had the other sets of the Winsor & Newton ink that come in sets of 8, and I had got them anyway, and then because polar bears are my favourite animal, I wanted to get the white ink, so I bought it, not realising how useful it would be for my colouring. And then I saw some videos on how people white out lines and saw that this was one of the best solutions, and I already had it lying around, so it was really useful. Now, I do have two, because this is my old one, which I think I must have got about a year ago now, and it's not that good anymore. It's kind of dried up, and this does happen with ink. It does still work. I can get it out with a paintbrush and then thin it out with some water, but the new one that I've got, which I did just recently get about a week ago, it's much more liquidy. It's great. So as you can see, when you open it, it is just like a liquid form. It's almost like a watercolour, but it is quite opaque. And the great thing about ink compared to paint or a gel pen is that the paper actually absorbs the ink, so you can put layers and layers and layers on. However, you have to keep the layers thin. I have found, and this is one of the things that has gone wrong for me on this page, that if you just apply the ink as it is without thinning it out, you can't go over it as easily, and it actually kind of scratches off. Whereas if you do thin layers, watered down, and keep applying them, then the paper absorbs it much more easily. So one of the things that I also found difficult was figuring out how to white out the lines when it's a darker area. As you can see here, I've actually put gouache on these dark areas because when I was going over with the dark pencil on the ink, it was scratching off and it wouldn't cover it properly. So what I would suggest if you're doing darker areas is don't put as many layers on, because really what I could have done is just left this black and then done the brown over it pretty well. But yeah, obviously this is a painting. It was done with oil paint, I believe, and you're never going to get the same results. using pencil or paint. I mean, you might with paint, but again, you've got that problem of the black lines. If you're not bothered about those, you can still get the colours accurate. But I actually think that the line work in this is great, you know, transitioning from the painting to the line work. But yes, you have that problem of the lines. The only thing I think if they did do a new print of this would be to make the lines more of a grey colour, because then it would already make it so much easier. But yeah, I'm basically going to show you how I would go about doing this here. So the arm of Cogsworth here, I think I've already put about 3 layers on, but as you can see, it's still quite dark. So I am going to just show you first how I would apply a layer on a random bit, and then I will do a time lapse of all the layers until I'm satisfied with it and it's dry, and then we will get to the colouring bit. So I might also show you how I would go about picking colours as well, because I obviously have my colour chart picker, which makes it so much easier to just put a colour up against the painting and see if it matches or not. So what you will need for this is obviously some sort of ink. Winsor & Newton ink isn't the only one you can use. I believe there are some others. Even a liquid acrylic might work, because it's still quite runny. But yeah, anything that doesn't stay on the surface of the paper, basically, you want it to seep into the paper. What you could also do, it would make your paper very crinkly, but if you didn't really want to go in on each line and do the ink, you could just do washes of the ink until it's light, but then you will get the crinkly paper. And obviously you have the image of the next painting on the back, so that might be something that you might not want to do. So yeah, I'm gonna stop rambling now because I've been talking for 7 minutes and we've literally done nothing, but I hope that first bit at least somewhat helped. So I'm going to use my new ink because I don't think I'll need to water it down as much as the other one. Even the opaque ink in the bottle might still be a little thick. So I've got some water just on the top of this here, and I'm going to get a paintbrush. You could also use a pipette, I've got a couple of those. Let me just move this so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to actually take away some of that water because I don't want all of that. Just going to dab this a bit and take some of it away. There, so there's kind of just a bit left. So it is quite a hard thing to do, and it is quite meticulous, and this is why the page has already taken me a very, very long time to do, because I have been, you know, doing all of this detail with the white ink first and then doing actual colouring. So it is going to be a laborious process. It's by no means just going to be a page that you whip up if you want to do it to this you know, extent of detail, but I do think that it pays off in the end after all of the hard work. So this page probably won't be done for quite a few more months, I can say, but basically I've just got it to a consistency that I'm happy with. I kind of did 3 or so goes of the ink into a tiny bit of water, so that should be about there. If it's too thick, I might even add some more, but for this I'm just going to do this bit here to show you. So you want quite a small paintbrush, and you want to try and not do too much of the actual white, just so that, you know, the texture of it doesn't change that much. And to begin with, this looks like quite a good layer, but when it dries you'll see that it does reduce back to a normal sort of colour, so you do have to keep applying it. But what I wouldn't suggest is going straight in with more until this is at least kind of dried a bit. So I hope you can kind of see that. I might zoom in a bit, but you guys know my zoom is never that good. Hopefully with the time lapse of me doing this you'll be able to see. So this is almost instantly dried, so I can just go in with more now. So I'll do a couple more layers with you, and then I am going to do the time lapse and get them to where I am happy with them. So this is by no means a tutorial in terms of the colours that I'll be using, because it's more just showing how I colour over the lines. So, you know, it's not about what colours I use and things like that. So, just going to wait for that bit to dry again. And this I will definitely go over more. I'm not happy with the lightness of the lines yet. So, I'll do a bit of this now. And at first I was only doing kind of 3 layers, but I think when I was doing 3 layers I was doing thicker ink, and I quickly realised that that wasn't the solution. So, you know, you might have to do loads and loads of layers if you're doing it lightly, but it's just to get it to a place that you're happy with. So, just going to finish this bit, and you can keep applying it, which is great, and it dries really quickly. So I am now going to just do a time lapse and keep applying layers until I am happy with them. I will zoom out a bit, and I will see you in a minute. So now I'm pretty much happy with how this has turned out. It looks a little more white on the camera, but it's okay, and there isn't much texture when I run my finger over it, which is a good sign. You don't want too much, you know, bumping. So I'm going to get my pencils, and I'm just going to cover the ink. I can't really give you an estimate of how often you'll need to replenish your ink. Maybe I wasn't shaking it up enough when I was using it. But yeah, I did just get a new one. They're only about £4 here. I actually got mine cheaper. But yeah, I'm going to show you actually how to do this bit. So I've got some pencils here which I had previously used on Lumiere, and I figured, well, some of the colours on here are very similar, so I'd try and do what I could with the pencils that I already have. So I'm not going to be telling you exactly what pencils I'm using because, you know, as I said, it's not really a tutorial, but I'm kind of just going to be showing you how I layer on top of things. So from this, I can kind of gauge the sorts of pencils that I will need to be using because I used them on the other bits of Lumiere, and the colours are quite similar, which is helpful. So I think I'm just going to start, and generally what I do is start with some lighter layers, and you want to go slowly with this because you don't want to scratch the ink off. So I am just going to start with a light layer, and for now don't worry about going over the ink too much, and the lines may not even cover completely because obviously it's just, you know, the likelihood of that happening isn't always good. You know, sometimes it won't work, sometimes it will. So now I'm just going in with the darker colour on the outside, and actually because it's a darker colour it's going over really, really well. With some colours it doesn't. Sorry, I just need to have a look. Okay, so there's more kind of brown over here, but for the first layer I generally just map out what I'm doing, and then I will go in and burnish after. So I'm thinking that this needs quite a lot of this khaki colour in it, and generally with these pages I'm using Holbein's and Prismacolors just because they're the ones that I've done on my swatch cards, so they're easier to use. So I need to leave that. So now I've kind of mapped that out. Obviously it's not going to be exactly what I'm going to do, but I'm just going to do this bit as well. And you know, the colour pencil's never going to match up to the paint, because obviously the paint's more of a free sort of medium. So, you know, my lines and stuff probably won't be exactly right. So now I've kind of mapped it out. I'm going to go in a bit darker, with harder pressure, and I'm actually just going to put a bit of this. Wait, what's this? Oh, I can't remember what this one's called. I think it's goldenrod. Just going to put a bit of that in to have it a bit more orangey, and then go in with the brown with harder pressure. Now what you don't want to do is do really, really hard pressure on the lines, because obviously that could pick up the ink. So you want to do kind of harder pressure everywhere else, but still go really faint and build up, and that is what's going to work. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. I might even need a bit of grey here, you know, something like that, just to dull it down slightly. Having said that, I don't think it needs to be dulled down that much. You kind of just got to play with it, put the layers down. So I'm just going over and slowly burnishing, and this is really nice because this paper doesn't have much tooth. It works really well, and within kind of 2 lots of the colours, as I've done here, it's pretty much there. So I'm going to say that the overall effect there I'm really, really happy with, although I do think it needs something else. It needs almost a reddish tone, and I have a pumpkin orange here. This is a really hard colour to gauge. And also because it's quite far away from me, I can't see it that well. I might just grab a grey. I think that will, maybe a French grey or something might just do the trick. And you know, if it's not totally what I'm happy with, I can always go in and just, you know, fix it up. This bit is actually really, really hard to gauge, so it is tricky. Okay, I think adding more of this reddish pumpkin orange colour is better. So I'm going to say for now I am happy with that. So it's more to show you how I cover the lines rather than making it look accurate. So the only other thing he does is obviously with paint, you can go in with the highlights really easily. So I do have to leave them and make sure that I am leaving space to add them in. So I'm just going to go and darken around it to make sure there's more of a contrast. So at this point I'm not really going over the ink anymore because it could lift it up, so I'm kind of just leaving the ink and colouring everywhere else. So I think that generally that is okay. So if I will lift it up to the camera and I'll zoom out now. So for this, you can kind of see up close, obviously you can see that the lines are showing, but from far away you can't really tell. It's obviously easier for me to see where the inconsistencies are, but that's actually one of the bits of the lines that I am more happy with. So yeah, that's basically how I do it. In terms of picking colours for this sort of thing and trying to make it accurate, with my I'll get them, my swatch cards. Sorry if the camera's shaking a bit, as I mentioned, it does tend to make some noise sometimes, but say for these purple flowers down here, if I was going to the Prismacolors and trying to figure out what colour it is, I can really easily see the sorts of colours that would go with it, and I know the light is kind of dulling the colours a bit, but mulberry would be a really, really good colour for this. And then in terms of the pinks, there are quite a few that are quite close. So this is why this is really good, and I will put a link to my swatch video if you haven't seen it. Again, in that video I did make it clear that I didn't create them, so Layak Fine Art actually came up with the idea and I just showed you how I did it. So I'm just going to write that down because otherwise I'm going to forget. So I hope in some way this has been helpful. I would definitely recommend going out and buying yourself some white ink if you're interested in doing this sort of colouring. I know it's a bit different to normal colouring. Obviously usually we wouldn't worry about the lines and you know, you just have fun with it. This is more of a developed sort of colouring style, I guess. You know, you do have to go the extra mile and white out all the lines, but in my opinion this is the easiest and best way to do it. So if you have any other suggestions of how to white out lines, I would love to know, because I can try them out and see what works. But for now I am going to carry on with this page throughout the weeks and yeah, see where it takes me. So thank you so much for watching. All the links will be down below as usual, and yeah, thank you so much for watching. So please feel free to comment if you have any questions about this. I'm open to answering if I can help you in any way, but yeah, I will see you in my next video. Bye everyone.